when the thing was procured. There are procedural and procurement irregularities that are done which are justified. And therefore, then the department will question and so on. And sometimes there's a question of overclaims, and then there's fights now about the claims and whether the work has been done and finished and things like that. That we understand they are legitimate. We understand the delays there. But what we have found, we've also found that there is also corruption involved. There's the notion of the 10%. The official calls the service provider and say, I am going on leave tomorrow. I have your invoice on my desk. I can sign it now or sign it when I come back. What are you saying? And others do it crudely and demand that you'll only get paid if you do that. And we've even noticed that when we studied this deeply, corruption is so embedded that it starts from the day you submit your application. That person who receives it wants a bribe, the person who processes it wants a bribe, the person who approves it wants a bribe. So there is a lot of corruption in this 30-day and so on. So we are fighting with Treasury and others. And now what is good is that the SIU and others are looking at this question of procurement. I know for instance, that Mr. Advocate Msibi is looking at it very closely. So it's a variety of things. And then officials, sometimes when they have messed up, they would try to look for a small problem, which is non-existent, to say that. So what we recommended, which has been accepted, is that a DG who has not kept to the payments or of the 30-day payments and has undermined, especially small businesses who actually are suffering, must not get a bonus. The second thing that we have insisted very strongly, and municipalities, and also we want Parliament to help us on this, and many departments except Treasury, we have insisted that if you have not paid on time, you must pay interest. And that interest must reflect on the DG, and with the AG's powers now, probably the DG must pay back that money of the interest. So we've pushed that, and we are trying to push very hard on it. And it's some of the things that we have dealt with. The honorable member has asked, that is Honorable Gwende, thank you very much for the advices and the interest on the public. Honorable Gwende, we have just some challenges now because of the coronavirus and others, and sometimes lack of resources. What we usually do have in the provinces on a number of issues, we have forums that are called citizens forums, where we discuss service delivery things. Commissioners who work in those areas will tell you that we've been able to get in KwaZulu-Natal through kids who were crossing the river, walking. We've managed to get a bridge built. We've managed to get certain houses in Mpumalanga built through these citizen forums. So we deal with that. Sometimes, of course, we work with the public protector and also the Human Rights Commission as partners in the constitutional sphere. And the other thing that is very important, and I'm sure Commissioner Fikeni, who is media friendly, we will be doing quite a lot of it. We do inspections. So we do just announce or unannounced inspections, where we just drop in at Steve Biko Hospital, sometimes with the media, sometimes without the media, and check and inspect and produce a report and talk to the CEO of the hospital about the problems or raise them with the department. So we do with other departments and others. The third thing that we can be helped, and we've asked the committee, it has helped us previously when we've asked, when a matter is worrisome too much, we do even ask the committee itself to hold a hearing. And in that hearing, we come and present and the departments concerned and other people and NGOs can also come to the committee and the matter is handled. We've had some hearings with the committee before on certain matters of importance. The Honorable Mantuli, the only issue I'm going to handle, others will be handled by my colleagues. SASSA, unfortunately, is a public entity, and the Commission's powers don't go over to public entities. The public protector handles public entities and so on. But we do, when we hear about public entities that have created things, even things like RTMC in transport and others, we do follow the money by approaching the department, like in this case, social development, and say that your agency is creating these and these problems. Can you act and please advise us? Because if we write, if we write to the CEO just ignores us because we don't have a mandate on that. And I think those are matters that I wanted to address from the committee. And I would like now my officials in those areas that they feel have left out, which they know to just answer. Is that in order, Mr. Chairperson?
That will be in order. They can come in immediately.
Thank you.
I don't know who you are, but come in. You have the platform now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'll touch on a couple of. Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'll touch on a couple of issues raised by honorable members. We'll start with the budget, particularly the COVID expenditure and the line item there on the one of 320. I think that was the one that was worrying. Now, I need to indicate that the Public Service Commission procured these items such as face masks, gloves, acrylic screens, the social distancing stickers and tapes. These were procured before we went on the lockdown. I think we would all recall that all of us, we were preparing and waiting for guidance from the president in terms of the lockdown. At that time, COVID had already been in our midst, and a procurement had to be made for all officials to have face masks and so on and so on. But also to indicate that this was a once-off item for all officials at national and also at provincial level. For face masks, I need to indicate that, and all of them actually, these are permanent items. We procured cloth masks so that people could wash them and wear them, and even today, they're still wearing the very same same mask. But I also need to indicate that Public Service Commission did not shut down completely. There were sections of the office, such as your grievance sections, such as corporate services, such as those that are investigating anti-corruption cases, and other sections that continue to operate at the time when other officials were at home. The other problem that we have as well with regard to items such as your acrylic skin is that from the level of deputy director downwards, our offices are such that people are sharing the office. We have got offices where you have got 3 or 4 people. So it was critical that things like acrylic skins were procured so that everybody could feel secured in their own spaces. And we also make sure that those social distancing and stickers and tapes are procured. So that is where the money went. I need to say it was a once-off. It was meant to make sure that officers were really protected. Those that were in the office, they could feel safe and not exposed to the COVID. Oh yes, and part of us procuring this was to make sure that also when we return to the office, these items are in place, as officials were asking when we were coming back as well, whether these things were in place, and to make sure that people feel safe, that their lives are not threatened. I want to move over now to the grievance. The chairperson has addressed that. We'll give a report detailing which are the departments, as well as the nature of those grievances that we receive, those that we deal with, and those that are referred to the commission, but also those that are dealt with at department at the level of the department. We'll give a report on that one. The chairperson has dealt with the issue of the 30-day payment. On that one, again, we can give you the latest report so that the committee can have a sense of who are these departments that continue to default on the 30-day payment. And as chairperson has indicated, we engage with them continuously and raise this matter. And this is one area really where we would want to have the support of the committee. And one would say, chairperson, with your approval, that it would be helpful if members of the other committees where these departments also report are also alerted of this, the departments that are defaulting in these areas. Chairperson, the issue where these departments also report also alerted public servants that are not paid their pensions. There are two issues here. There's an issue relating to departments. I must say there is just to a certain extent there's just a general lack of pay for those who are sitting in departments and those who are sitting in human resources, to make sure that when their colleagues leave the service, they package all documents that are required appropriately and so on, so that the file is complete when it goes to GPEF. But the problem is not to GPA, but the problem is not only the departments. There is a problem also at the level of the GPA as well. And we have engaged National Treasury, as chairperson has said, that the PSC does not have mandate over public entities. We've engaged National Treasury at that level to request that they put their house in order in as far as oversight over the GPA. But also we are engaging departments, we're engaging heads of corporate services, DGs of those departments where the officials are not assisted. And we have also recommended to GPA that continuous training should be offered to those sitting at corporate services to make sure that files are properly constituted, and that when an official leaves the service, that file is processed with speed at the level of GPA and the payments are made. On the readiness of the school, the PSC has paid quite number of visits to schools, not only during 2020, but even before, looking at quite a number of issues at the level of school. So some of the things that we found when we went to the school are things that we had already raised with the departments of education, things like infrastructure, in as far as the teacher-learner ratio is concerned. We have raised these issues in the past with the department. We've raised these issues. We've written, the chairperson has written to the Minister of Education to say we need to pay attention to these issues. And it's unfortunate that at the time of lockdown, we were found wanting on the very same matters where we had to do social distancing in an environment where you find that a class has got 50 learners with one teacher. And when we had to do social distancing, it becomes difficult. But those are the issues that we raised. Issues relating to cleanliness of the schools and the use of pit latrines, which could be totally unacceptable at the time of COVID, where some schools did not have water. We need to pay attention to this local municipalities. Unfortunately, that at the time of lockdown, we were water and sanitation, as I said earlier on, to make sure that those schools also have a supply of water. And I also indicated, or some of the things that we found, obviously, was that on the first day of learning, some schools did not have masks. And we raised those issues, and we worked with the teachers at those schools that we attended to also alert the HODs and the MECs in those provinces to say, here are where are the issues that are playing themselves out on the day, and they needed to be attended to. Chairperson, I think I would leave it at that. Some of the issues he had attended to.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you answer the warning thing? The issue relating to
the PSC official.
Yeah.
Yes. In respect of the PSC official, we have issued a warning when we picked up that the official contributed to the delay, and it was just one invoice, but we have issued a warning as a managing consequence for such behavior. And our track record has been really clean over quite a number of months and over financial years. And we've also communicated again in the organization that such behavior cannot be tolerated.
And the 10% thing on vacancy.
On the vacancy rate, I need to indicate that the PSC's vacancy rate is sitting at 6% as an institution or as a department, the OPSC, and we are working very hard to fill those vacancies. So by and large, the issue with the Public Service Commission on vacancies is at the level of the commission, and I think Chairperson has hard to dealt with that matter. Fill those and the 10%, by the way, for filling of vacancies is the norm. So we're sitting commission on vacancies is at the level of 6%. Thank you, Chairperson.
Is there anything on money? No. Yeah. Well, we'll only have to make the last input, Chairperson.
Welcome, Dr. Fikeni.
Last input, Chairperson.
Okay. Welcome, Dr. Fikeni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And again, let me start by appreciating the warm words of welcome from the honorable members. I just want to say that I will do my best working with the team of PSC and the executives here. And I just want to add by saying that in our analysis within the PSC, we are anticipating that there is higher risk where you do have huge transactions of activities. And the vaccination rollout, the stimulus packages on economic recovery, the tourism and the infrastructure are some of the areas that we may actually prioritize for monitoring as well as for visiting to make sure that the state of readiness is there and the risk of corruption is minimized. Thank you.
Thank you. You have answered all the questions, isn't it?
Yes, Chairperson, we finished ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. You can stay on if you wish, but if you don't, you are free to leave. Mascole, what is the next one? Is this DPSA?
It's National School of Government, Chairperson.
Or National School of Government? Okay.
Sorry, Chairperson, you're finished with us now.
Yeah, I'm saying we are through with you. You can stay on if you want, or you can log out.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Professor Ngaweni, it's you now.
Thank you, Chair, and a good afternoon to you and to all the honorable members of the committee, and the condolences once again, if I may express that to you, Chair, all the members who've lost their loved ones, and also in the executive, we lost Minister Nomthembu, which was a painful thing for the NSG because he was our, great supporter as the school. Each time we spoke about what we do as a school, and we talk about our minister and the deputy minister who's here, he will remind us that, no, those are your bosses. Don't tell me that your supervisors are attending our courses. We are your students. We must be there first in order to set a good example as the presidency, that in addition to the efforts of the minister and the deputy minister, we also supporting your efforts. So it was a great loss indeed for us as a school as well. Chair, the presentation is a bit long, but we're going to summarize it. If you allow me, I will start by sharing the bad news. We're making a report on what happened up to the month of September, which is the first 2 quarters of the financial year. But we're now in February, so I will talk later about the good news, because the bleak picture you'll see, especially in the first quarter of last year, it did progressively change as we move to the second, and in particular to the third quarter. This I will not go back to each because it's been stated, This is important, Chair. The one that I'm showing now, the slide, because it's a reminder of what our strategic objective and what we need to be measured on in the period under review. And so we'll talk about some of what I'm showing here around quality management issues, curriculum development, as well as institutional matters. The chairperson and honorable members of the committee will recall that, in fact, it was in my first meeting in this committee in April last year. There were specific questions that had been raised around quality issues, the relevance of our curriculum, and there were also questions raised about the institution as the NSG per se. And in the first 2 quarters of the year,
Professor Mawen,
yes,
can you hold a bit? You see, this holding meetings virtually make you sometimes make mistake as the chairperson. Before you present, I should have allowed the DM to introduce to us what you are going to say and make her opening address. Can I ask for your indulgence in that regard?
No problem, Chair. No problem at all. Thank you.
DM, sorry for that. I made a mistake here. I should have given you first.
No problem, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me recognize you, Chairperson, and also the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, senior officials from the MPSA portfolio, and the support staff for the Portfolio Committee. Please allow me to start the meeting by wishing all the members of the Portfolio Committee a prosperous and a blessed 2021. To mention, Chairperson, that the past year we are accounting for has been difficult and challenging, not only for our country, but for the world, but also for the public service. The impact of the pandemic will surely remain with us for a very long time. Since the outbreak of the virus, we have experienced the greatest loss in the history of our country within a very short space of time. This period has been characterized by losses, loss of life, loss of loved ones, loss of the economy, loss of public servants, loss of jobs, etc. It is proper that we do extend our heartfelt and sincere condolences to all members of the Portfolio Committee who have lost their family members, but also to all fellow South Africans and our public servants. Chairperson, even if it is like this, but it is not all doom and gloom. Today marks 2 days after President Ramaphosa received the first consignment of COVID-19 vaccine in South Africa. And for us, this signifies a period of healing and hope for all of us. But of course, even this morning, the recovery rate from COVID-19 was reported to be at 90%. And therefore, this brings some hope. The impact of the coronavirus pandemic, Chairperson, on the delivery of services meant that there were challenges that we encountered. Some of the departments worked under extremely difficult and pressured conditions to deliver services to the people. These will include the Department of Health, Home Affairs, Police, even SASSA. But of course, as the Department of Public Service and Administration, we had to ensure that norms and standards that are in line with the disaster management regulations were developed, issued, and complied with, whilst at the same time, we had to continue monitoring the compliance with the already existing norms and standards. So the period we are accounting for as the portfolio was indeed characterized by different and several lockdown alert levels. For instance, Chairperson, the national lockdown on alert level 5 was announced on the 26th of March 2020 to the 30th of April 2020, which is the first month that we'll be accounting for. And on the 1st of May 2020, the country moved to alert level 4 until the 31st of May 2020. And several restrictions remained in place. And from the 31st of May 2020 to 18 August, then the country was at alert level or on alert level 3, and the country moved to alert level 2 from 18th August to 20 September, which again is the period that we'll be accounting for as Q1 as well as Q2. But we still deemed it important that the citizens of the country had access to the necessary quality services. We had to continue providing services and worked very hard to achieve most of the targets that we had set for ourselves, despite the challenges. We are pleased to present to the Portfolio Committee on Q1 and Q2 performance for the financial year 2020-2021. Chairperson, I must highlight that there have been delays in the filling of vacancies within the Cpsi. This is as a result of the process we initiated of repositioning the Cpsi. The process is unfolding. We have looked at various models for organization that will work best for them. We hope to finalize this process before the end of this financial year. As a matter of fact, we want it finalized as soon as possible. On the NSG, Chairperson, NSG was indeed negatively impacted by the pandemic because the targeted number of learners that would have enrolled for the courses offered by NSG could not be met. As MPs will know that they had planned for physical classes. And of course, during level 5, 4, even level 3, physical classes were not possible. And this called for them moving away from physical classes to online classes. And this actually had to take time for them to be ready for that. But also it actually called for swift change from physical to online classes. But of course, even if at the time when they were ready, not all learners had the tools of trade or resources that are required to do so. And this, of course, you will agree with me, was beyond the NSG. For DPSA Chairperson, we will be reporting that for Q1, we had 33 targets. Of those, in fact, 30 targets. Of those, 27 were met, which is 90%, and I think that is a distinction, and 3% could not be met. The DG will definitely be explaining as to why those were not met. And the fruitless expenditure that will be reported here today is being attended to as prescribed in the PFMA. The Portfolio Committee in the past raised some issues, particularly issues such as PAMA regulations. Let me report that DPSA has to date developed 2 sets of regulations on PAMA. It is envisaged that the regulations will come into effect on the 1st of April 2021, depending on the state of readiness, of course, of the DPSA itself. EXCO is currently being engaged to determine state of readiness, especially in respect of the rollout of e-disclosure system to local government. As we account for this performance information, we do pay tribute to the many public servants that we lost during the pandemic. This, of course, as others have said, include the loss of our late Minister Jackson Mthembu. We join you, Chairperson, but we also join the principal, and we join all others that are going to speak here in paying tribute to this important, valiant anti-apartheid activist, a consummate politician, a stellar communicator of note, a distinguished and principled freedom fighter, a leader who could lead and be led, a morally and ethically astute public representative, a champion of good governance, accountability, democracy, and service delivery. Chairperson, we were never ready for the passing of Minister Mthembu. We say, Zolala izinsizwa, Nkosi isibongo, and we say, hamba kahle Comrade Jackson, We will miss your infectious smile, and we will miss his typical laughter. Chairperson, at this moment, let me then hand over to the principal of the school to continue with the presentation. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Comrade DM. Let me, before the principal speak, ask the indulgence of the members of the committee. It has just come to my mind now. Before we end this meeting, I think I will allow members individually to pay tribute to Honorable Mtembu. That's the best thing we can do as the committee. I've done it in my opening, but I think members on their own, they must do that before we close. The principal can come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again to our Deputy Minister for her, summary. I will skip some of the things that she had said because we can have more time maybe for questions and engagement. Chairpersons, safe to say that, as indicated, what you see here is what we had aimed to deal with as part of deepening the quality of the work that we are doing as a National School of Government. As I said, Chair, in my first meeting of this committee last year, April, there were questions raised around these three critical matters, and we will be giving a report on some of them this afternoon. And these are the reminder of the type of training programs that we have. Again, as the committee had raised this with us, there's work being done on reviewing our, education, training, and development interventions, so that we make sure that they are relevant and responsive, and there will be a peer review mechanism. In fact, we have employed the chief director who come from SAQA, who's a specialist in program accreditation and quality assurance, who's now responsible for our quality assurance unit. Once again, we reorganize our work using these bands that you see, from entry level, which is interns, or those who wish to work for government. We call it breaking the barriers and entry, or foundation, all the way up to executive, which includes DDGs, DGs, MMs, accounting officers, as well as members of the executive as well. So what we would be saying, just as a recap or a summary of our performance, we did indicate consistently, as the committee called us, that we have been suffering financial losses as a result of COVID. This is precisely because historically, the majority of the causes of the NSG were delivered face-to-face. And because of the national COVID response, we then suspended most of our face-to-face interventions, and therefore there were minimal contacts or causes that were implemented. However, as we will show during the quotas under review, we began to shift our causes to online and to virtual, and you will see the numbers do show already as it is. I must also say, Chair, that we saw something phenomenal happening last year. The NSG has not been spending money on adverts. We're not buying adverts. Instead, we've effectively used the social media platforms and other public engagements to raise the profile of the NSG. And I do believe that in the next 12 months, there will be fewer people in South Africa who will be asking a question, what is the National School of Government? And part of the reason some people are asking that question is because the school has changed names several times, and therefore it got lost in popular imagination. But as we're doing the media engagements, I remember when we did one voice note from our deputy minister on an ethics course, which was sent around, we began to see DGs and HODs calling, saying there's a voice note we've received from the deputy minister inviting people to join the NSG causes. We now wish to register for that cause. When we issue a statement from the minister on causes like ethics in the public service, we immediately see the numbers rising. As this was happening, Chair and members of the committee, we were building our own capability to move, to online as well as virtual learning, because historically there has been less investment in that regard. In terms of the numbers, we truly, underperformed in the first, 2 quarters because there was a shock in the system. Obviously, public servants were staying away. Even as we move towards, in September, as we're moving to level 3, there were still very few public servants who were signing up for the majority of our courses, which are face-to-face or contact type training, and that is the reality that we see here. However, during the same period, then we're now increasing our presence in the virtual space. This was meant to increase the traffic into the NSG platforms. It was meant to get people to understand that we are capable of delivering programs other than through face-to-face. So we had a series of thought leadership engagements or master classes. These are the type of people we're bringing into the NSG, leveraging on the brand and on the profiles that these people carry. And the numbers you see here are people who will just tune in online and participate in a program that the NSG is running. These are typically your 2 to 4 hour master classes, and public servants are curious enough to want to know what is being discussed, what are the topical issues, and that is why we see these numbers that are growing as we are showing you today. But importantly, Chair, and it's a matter that did not be missed actually. There has been calls for South Africa to introduce what is called the pre-entry examination. And indeed, it started being piloted in 2019 before my time. There is now a pre-entry program, which is compulsory, and there is over 90% compliance. By this, I mean, already the people were being appointed by the 2nd quarter of the financial year. People will not be appointed unless they've written the pre-entry exam administered by the National School of Government. The Department of Public Service Administration and the DGs here have consistently been doing quality assurance on the adverts being issued, whether or not they do put this pre-entry exam as a minimum requirement. And in cases where people do apply and they're interviewed before they produce a Nugela certificate, appointments will not be made because those will be irregular appointments. And remember, this is a pre-entry into the senior management service, and there is less than 11,000 posts available throughout the public service at SMS level. And the numbers are encouraging because it means public servants do believe that there is career progression opportunities for them, and they are enrolling for the Nugela course. Hence, we see those numbers only in the period under review. The virtual space, Chair, is a future for the NSG because we don't think it's possible to run, classes of face-to-face with 30,000 people coming to our classes in future. We don't think it is possible, at least not in the next, 2 years or so, even after the vaccine. The nice thing about the virtual, as we've seen during this period, we're able to reach out to as many people as possible, regardless of where they are. You're cutting travel costs, but also we're able to build on the international partnerships, as you can see in what I am showing now. Working with the Department of Women, we have launched a program very successfully on gender mainstreaming in the public service. In fact, it's a 3-module course. It's accredited, and we now have more than 250 public servants who are participating in that course. We started it in September last year, and the numbers are growing. The positive thing about it, we are seeing many DGs and HODs. They are registering men into this course. So it's not exclusively for women. And we've actually run one with, public servants with disabilities. And importantly, as we went to cabinet last year, August, 2 new bespoke programs were introduced. We had reported earlier in the committee that we're designing a number of several new programs. One of them is Economic Governance Spring School. Student number 1 here was the late Minister Jackson Mthembu. In fact, there is also another member of the mayoral committee of Zululand District Municipality who unfortunately passed away in a car accident. He also had been a member of this cause, and he passed away in November. And it was very sad for us because he had joined this cause together with his executive mayor of Zululand District Municipality. Another program we got approval for in cabinet is Etela, which is a bespoke executive program. This is like a homegrown thing, exclusively South African. The reason the committee to this cause is called Etela, which means rise. This executive program is because we are mobilizing some of the best brains in the country who are teaching these accounting officers here. We've got people like the Vice Chancellor of University of Johannesburg, Vice Chancellor of the University of Nelson, Mandela Bay, who also was a DG at some point, so she knows exactly what she's talking about when she's teaching here. We've got case studies on digital transformation that will be led by SARS, and we have other excellent, top quality, and exemplary public servants who are actually delivering courses in this program called Etela. And these are complementing a series of other programs that were initiated during the period under review. This is just to show who is coming. Even a former president is actually a member of faculty at the NSG, providing inputs in terms of the program that I have shown before. And we have people coming from everywhere in the country, including hospital CEOs, and so on. This one briefly, Chair, is showing what I said earlier on, that we're able during this period to reach about 17,000 students enrolling for the courses at NSG is precisely because we are shifting to synchronous and asynchronous and virtual and online. However, the challenge, as the Deputy Minister indicated earlier on, is the issue of data enablement and people having tools of trade. There's a conversation led by the Minister, the DM and the DG, DPSA, that looks at how public servants, beyond just the senior ones or the supervisors, can have laptops and data and so on. The risk, Chair, if the NSG was to move completely to virtual and online, public servants, like we can take a police officer who spends most of his or her time in event doing crime prevention, they will be excluded from the programs of the NSG. That is why it is important that we also package this so that you can do your learning in a cell phone device. But more than that, we are now working on getting 0 rating, because if NSG online programs can be 0 rated, it means even cleaners in Parliament will be able to join NSG courses without having to worry about data cost, which is a prohibitive thing at the moment. In summary, this is showing the list of programs that people are enrolling for. As you can see, the program called Nukela, which is a compulsory exam, was leading at the time. However, these numbers have significantly changed, and we will show you when we present Q3 results that the ethics in the public service has been amongst the programs that most public servants are joining, which is very actually important, because whilst it is free, but the fact that most people are enrolling for it as compared to other programs that give them credits and the possibilities of progression, it shows that most public servants are interested in these matters of ethics, and we will do deeper research on that going forward. And lastly, on this slide, Chairperson, and in fact it was raised, I don't remember which honorable member, but it was in a meeting in a committee in August or July. We decided to extend the faculty. So a call was issued through the minister inviting senior public servants to actually come and be trained to become trainers and mentors in the public service. These are just some of the numbers. So between the time when we advertised up until the closure, we had 426 people who were applying. This is a breakdown of who is applying. Obviously, from all the provinces. We are showing which provinces, Gauteng leading the pack, followed by KZN, Eastern Cape, and Northwest is at the bottom, unfortunately. We will now be engaged training these people to become trainers. The split is all, from a gender point of view, is almost, is almost 50-50. So as the DM said, we've succeeded in doing a number of what we had planned to do on quality matters, building an IT system, which was kind of a problem, for us, going out there to communicate our interventions across the, the 3 spheres and other organs of state, building our knowledge management system, as well as on research. We've done several of that, Chair. And if you allow me, Chair, I'm going to, okay, these are some of the things that we did not achieve. As you can see, there's training programs where we didn't achieve because we trained nobody, at least physically as planned, under level 1, and very few people showed up under level in the second quarter of the year. And lastly here is that we have been hosting thought leadership sessions. These are important because as a knowledge institution, we don't just want to train people on how to chair a bid committee, but it is important that we train public servants who can think as well and solve problems. Hence, this kind of the products that we have been implementing as the NSG. There are some targets, as I said, that were not achieved, mainly as a consequence of deferring certain programs. For example, we haven't started training members of parliament because we signed the MOU with Parliament late. We will only then be putting it into operation in the next coming weeks. And again, COVID was a dominant story as to why we couldn't. On professionalization, as I will report shortly, we didn't achieve some of the things in the months as planned, but the pace has been picked up now. And I will also just now talk about who is enrolling, who is participating in those kinds of programs. Now, on lastly, on the strategy and finance, Chair, we do have a challenge in terms of the compensation budget, and as a result, there are some posts we are unable to fill immediately because of money issues. Fortunately, as the NSG, we have not been spending a lot on PPE. In fact, we only spent, maybe 3 times when we had COVID cases. We've only had 1 fatality. Since but we have managed our officials. A few had been, infected, but they've come back safely to work. We do have PPE at the office, which has been donated by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, our partner with whom we are delivering a number of programs. I must say, Chair, that some of the vacant posts, as we make more money, as we recover post the budget cuts, we will be able to fill those posts because we will have the resources. In place. For example, in the office of the principal, there is nobody there because of the money issues. But as we recover, we will be able to get some support for it. We did report here that we had a big cybersecurity scare. In fact, for 2 months we lost control of our server. We have recovered now. We've had to spend money, which was unbudgeted, close to 2 million rands, in order for us to build the cybersecurity capability. We, as I indicated, we're running 2 votes. There's a vote and a trade account. On the trade account, we're looking relatively okay. I state in this committee that we started experimenting in the second quarter by looking at partnerships in the private sector, and we did indeed get some money into our account. Anglo-American is sponsored, and All Mutual, as well as the British Council. Now, these are not donations, honorable members. What it means is, as part of building our financial sustainability model, if we are doing a course where people must pay fees, either locally or globally, and there's a third party who is willing to sponsor people to participate in the course, that is how we will make the arrangement. That's why governments are struggling with budgets, to send people. We can alleviate the financial burden in those instances. And that is why we were able to then go and negotiate with some of the some of the financial partners. As I said, on thought leadership and on building faculty, we have introduced a fellowship program during the period under review. We've got they call her the most dangerous economist, female economist in the world currently, Professor Mariana Mazzucato. She's one of the fellows. She will be teaching actually here at the NSG in the next few weeks. We've got former DGs in the presidency, former Secretary of Defense, former DG Environmental Affairs, longest serving female DG, who's now a fellow as part of our faculty at the NSG. These are volunteers. We're not paying them money. They bring their expertise, including Dr. Eric Lee, the most influential thought leader in China at the moment, who's with the Fudan University. We started during this period to design new courses. This is a list of them. We will be training chief of staff in the coming period. We've noticed that we've got people who are in the communication space who struggle with writing and other basics, so there will be a writing course for communicators. Actually, we did say, Chair, we're starting a process of doing a skills audit of government communicators in partnership with GCIS. GCIS is finalizing the report and will be processing the recommendation by introducing a training program. These are some of the partners, and it's important that the brand of NSG is associated with big brands locally and globally that are leading in education and training, especially for people in the public service. So these are some of the partnerships that we have. Typically, when we've invited, and these are what we started to do last year, August already, and now those programs are being rolled out, because sometimes it takes long to design these new courses. We will work on them, and then we design posters like this, which are spread around. Our virtual courses take up to 50 people, and our classes are full, as is the case now. And lastly, Chairperson, this is the most important slide, perhaps because of the second pillar of our work on professionalization. The framework is out for public comment. This is how we will be engaging. These are the stakeholders. So we're going to be spending 2 weeks flat out in this public consultation on the professionalization framework. Our view is once we have gotten all these perspectives from all these stakeholders, we will then return to you as a portfolio committee just to have an engagement on the professionalization framework, so that we can get some assistance, and input from you as well as the committee. If you allow me, Chair, there's only 2 slides on the finances. I'll ask the CFO just to talk to them, especially in the parts that deals with the deficits that we experience, and that will be all for our presentation. Our CFO, Pindi Mkwanazi, is here, Chair. Thank you.
You can come in, Pindi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Principal. So just to highlight our budget for the year, we've got for the 2 programs that we have, it was originally 206,628, which is that first slide that you are seeing. And then we had the budget cuts. If you look at program 1, administration, there was a budget cut of about 21.9 million on that program, which left us with only 47, which left us with, with only 90.9 million for the year. We do see this as a problem for us, because on program 1, our main expenditure is on fixed things like our leases, is compensation. You've got leases, you've got IT support, those kind of cleaning and the security. Those are the kind of things that we are experiencing. To also highlight, on the second program, which is for the trade account, we did receive additional funding for that one from Department of Public Works through the National Treasury. This was because due to COVID, we were not able to do training, and therefore we're not able to balance our budget and pay for salaries, which we normally would have been paying from what we generate, which has always been a short-term thing with Treasury. When we would raise that they need to pay for the stuff, then we do the business, not use the money from the business to pay for the salaries of the public servants. So they did and gave us 44 million for the trade that increased their budget to 136.9. So on the year to date for the 6 months period, we had spent the 56 million. What we wanted to highlight as well in the trading account is that training revenue was low. We only generated 1.3 million there instead of the 49 that we had budgeted. This is mainly because of the face-to-face training then not being able to be run through. Just to highlight as well, on the PPE, we only spent about 496,000. This was because of the cleaning and the masks that we issued to staff that are cloth masks that they reuse. And as Principal mentioned, we received some donations that can be used from the Chinese that can be used for the staff as well as for those that come through to the school. I think those are the highlights for us. Yes, we do see that we were going to have spending pressures in Program 1 on goods and services. We're talking to Treasury about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So that's the last, Chair. As I said, I am putting it here up front because we have formally sent an application for 0 rating. We are receiving some positive response with companies like MTN. What 0 rating will mean is the most junior public servants will be able to enroll, especially for the online courses, without having to worry about data, which means they can go onto the NSG platform, the one that is 0 rated, and be able to do a course on anti-corruption, on ethics in the public service, on know your constitution and others, without them having to worry about data. And we know that very junior public servants are price sensitive. By eliminating that cost from them, we're opening opportunities for them to join our causes. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, dear.
Thank you, Prof. Can I now invite Center for Public Service Innovation? I want this presentation of NSG and Cpsi to be discussed together by the committee. Cpsi?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Chairperson, I will try to be as quick as possible so that we allow other the department to also have time. That's just the outline. Desiree, can you put it on PowerPoint? Presentation mode, please. If we go to slide, I'll go to slide 2. That's the outline. And when we move forward to the next slide, which is slide 4, Desiree, it shows that over the 2 quarters, we actually had 4 targets. And over the 2 quarters, only 1 target was not achieved. I will explain that later. Go to the next slide, which is slide 5, just to indicate one of the targets that was achieved during the first quarter. We work with partners across the globe, and through that engagement, Cpsi sits as a focal point on the OECD program that looks at innovation. So we had that engagement in May. And on slide 6, it shows the target that was not achieved. We had planned to host 2 innovation workshops face-to-face. The terms of reference were actually prepared in March, but as we went into lockdown, national lockdown level 5, we had to revise the terms of reference. And because we are not in the office for 21 days, it sort of caused more delays as we ended up appointing a service provider for online or virtual sessions only in September. So the workshops were held in the 3rd quarter instead of the 2nd quarter as initially planned. In the next slide on page, slide 7, the Cpsi got a clean audit under very difficult circumstances, but we were able to maintain our clean audits over the last couple of years. Some of the work that we do in Cpsi, we are unable to box it into quarters. So part of the report also shows that although we only had 4 targets within the quarter, it doesn't mean nothing else was happening. There's a build-up of work that is happening towards the achievement of targets later in the year. You'll agree with me that innovation is not a linear process. You have to go back and forth. So it's better to report closer to the end of the financial year and show that you've been working over 3 quarters to achieve a particular target. I would like to indicate one of these projects is the Lamesi Innovation School in partnership with KZN. The work started in the first quarter, but as I say, it's ongoing. We'll be launching the school in mid-February, and our minister is is involved in the process. We give him regular feedback in terms of what we are inputting into the process of establishing the Lamesi Innovation School, which is now, I'm told, is going to be called Anton Lembede Innovation School. In the next slide, which is slide 8, I just want to highlight some of the work. We are working with CETA. CETA is one of our partners. One of the challenges that we have at Cpsi is that we don't have internal capacity. For instance, we don't have software developers. So it always leads us to partner with, for instance, the Gauteng Innovation Hub, where we enter into a memorandum of understanding with them. We transfer money to them for them to source developers for us. We are now working with CETA as well to see if they can second some of their developers to Cpsi to assist us with development of solutions at Cpsi rather than for us to pay service providers out there to develop solutions for us. So it's promising for that CETA will be able to give us those second their developers to us to assist in the development of solutions. One of such work that we're doing is the Home Affairs real-time monitoring. I'm pleased to report to the committee that we have now moved towards actual testing in a site. My team, Pierre and his team, are now and then have to go to Bronkhorstspruit and the Pretoria CBD to pilot the solutions. And obviously, you want user feedback in terms of fine-tuning. So we are already at pilot stage. I hope very soon this system will go live and it will be able to assist Home Affairs to monitor when, say, Acacia Home Affairs goes down. They shouldn't wait. Home Affairs shouldn't wait for a call to say we are down. They should be able to pick up from the system that Acacia has gone down in terms of IT. Then they're able to solve the problem immediately without wasting even more time. In the next slide, Honorable Chairperson and members, we have worked just to show some of our partnerships with the National Advisory Council on Innovation, which is an entity of the Department of Science and Innovation. We've actually produced a report, a rapid assessment of the state of public sector innovation. That report is still being channeled through the DSI minister, and later on it will be shared with our minister, and I hope we'll be able to bring it to the committee as well to see what is coming out. But we are looking forward in the next financial year to actually do a more comprehensive assessment at different levels to see what is the state of public sector innovation in more detail. So the study that we did, it was just a desktop rapid assessment to start throwing feelers there in terms of the state of public sector innovation. Results that are coming out of there are quite interesting. We are also developing a compendium of COVID-19 related innovations. I think innovation and knowledge management go together. We don't want to lose what is coming out of COVID so that we preserve that knowledge for future use and sharing later on. These are homegrown South African solutions that we're trying to put in a compendium so to encourage learning. And we hope that NSG will be able to use this in some of their courses as real case studies that are coming out. I also want to mention to members that we have a course that NSG is running, which is called Leading Innovation in the Public Service, that we sort of jointly developed. And what we are doing now is before the end of the financial year, Cpsi will be paying for our awards finalists to be part of that course, which is rendered by NSG. In the next slide, I just want to go to the next slide, David, just to same time, that we also publish the case studies online through our Ideas That Work publication, part of preserving knowledge as well, so that public servants can learn from each other. I've already mentioned the reasons of why the workshops were not held in time. What I want to highlight there is that these workshops are now focusing on what we call design thinking skills, a skill that we think will benefit the public service. We also want to later on go into discussions with MSG to see if they can also introduce a course in design thinking so that public servants are empowered to solve their own problems using this type design thinking skills. I've spoken to the International Public Sector Innovation Programs that we are a national contact point for OECD. Mr. Squandrat is sitting on that committee. In the next slide, which is slide 12, it just shows some of the projects that we are busy with. The Sunward Park School e-learning solution, Sunward Park, we found it through our awards program in previous years, but now we are supporting its replication through a partnership with the innovator, the person who has who actually introduced it in the school. So we've just recently signed an SLA, and that work will commence soon. We are also working with Eastern Cape in terms of e-leave, and we hope when we get CETA developers to come on board, they'll be able to strengthen these projects. As I indicated, we do not have skills internally, and it's part of the review, as the Deputy Minister has said, that the Cpsi needs to build certain skills internally. I mean, I remember when I started at Cpsi years back, there were only 4 people and they were outsourcing almost everything. That is when the Cpsi first started. But organically, the Cpsi started building skills internally so that they can run with these programs rather than rely on external partners to bring software solutions internally into the Cpsi to assist departments and so forth. Coming to HR, we have a very high vacancy rate, and I think the Deputy Minister has already indicated that we are busy with the review of the Cpsi, and we hope very soon we will deal with the current vacancy rate, which is 16.7%. We have over 66% females as in SMS, and people with disabilities, we are standing at 5.8%. Moving quickly to financial information. As indicated by NSG and OPSC, we also had a cut from Treasury. I think they took about 6 million from us. Now we only have 34 million for the current financial year. So we contributed to the COVID response package from our little purse. Our expenditure is very low as it is now due to the same reasons that I think most departments we are sort of paralyzed, especially in the first quarter because of the national lockdown. But later on, we started finding other ways of delivering on our targets. So our expenditure is also low, standing at 32. By the end of September, it was just over 23%. But things have improved a bit in the third quarter, and we hope that by the time we report at the end of the financial year, the picture will look a little bit better. On the next slide, I think I will move to slide 18. On slide 18, it just shows, honorable members, where we got the 6 million from. We made a lot of savings from travel. The nature of our job is that we have to go out to provinces and to municipalities. But because of the lockdown, we couldn't even access, say, a hospital where you have a project running. So about 80% reduction in travel and subsistence. The lease payments, when we moved from Centurion to DPSA, we were not paying rent. So that was a saving as well. Although I need to mention that from 1 August last year, we will be starting to pay DPSA rental for the space that we are occupying. So that picture will change a bit in terms of our expenditure. Venues and facilities, as I said, we moved online like NSG to deliver our thought leadership conference and to also do training and so forth. In the next slide, slide 19, it unpacks our expenditure, which I already indicated that it's very low, standing at 33%. There's the spending on compensation of employees, just standing at 40% by then. I think we had a saving of about 1.4 million, which is due to the vacancies that we have that the Deputy Minister has referred to. Some of the posts are filled on contract, but those contracts are coming to an end in July. So it means the work that we are doing with the Minister and Deputy Minister needs to be addressed urgently to avoid having to renew contracts and so forth, so that we can move into making sure that those posts are filled as they are critical posts. In goods and services, expenditure very low as well at 18%. As I said, travel and subsistence, it didn't happen a lot. There was a delay in signing a service level agreement with Innovation Hub for that project at Home Affairs, so that also led to the low expenditure. On the next slide, slide 20, further indicates other savings that we had, for instance, audit fees, because National Treasury and DPME moved their timelines to later. It means the AG could not invoice us during that time when we had hoped to pay for audit fees. So we only incurred that expense in October, November. It will reflect in the third quarter. As I said, we ran our workshops online, basically at no cost, and that also led to a bit of savings or under expenditure. In the next slide, which is the last slide, it just shows on slide 21 our average payment days at Cpsi. For the 6 months, our turnaround was 3.55 days. I must indicate, Honorable Chair members, to remind that the Cpsi is very small. Our finance is run by a CFO and 2 clerks, supply chain, 1 deputy director, 1 clerk, HR, there are 2. So I think even if the transactions are few, the number of steps that one needs to follow in processing a payment is the same as anyone else. But we are able to make sure that we pay an average of 3.55 days that's our turnaround time for an invoice. And I think one of the things that make us be able to pay so quickly is that in our payment processes, for instance, supply chain would verify banking details before the invoice arrives. So that saves time, because most of the time when they try to process invoices, they then would take time to verify banking details. So they will do that step before the invoice arrives, so that by the time the invoice arrives, you don't have to go and verify banking details. So it saves a lot of time. And I thank you, Chairperson. We'll wait for questions from members.
Thank you. Both presentations are now open for discussion by members. Can members indicate by show of hands those who want to ask questions? Okay, I see Honorable Schreiber, Gondwe, Komani, Mutipe, Lesoma. I've called you in terms of your raising hands. Honorable Schreiber, is your turn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone. It's great to see all the colleagues again, and I do hope everyone is healthy, and I share the sentiments expressed about Minister Mthembu, but I'm sure, as the Chair said, we'll get to that in a minute. Thank you for these presentations. I have questions for the National School of Government, Chair. The first one being just a statement to welcome, I think, the move towards pre-entry requirements and that examination. I'd just like to confirm that I understood correctly the principle there that is this now mandatory across the entire public service, or is it limited to a specific part of the state? Can you give us an indication of how widespread this requirement for pre-entry exams is? And I'm wondering about whether we're not moving towards a point then, if it's a widespread thing, where we would need to have sort of annual dates where prospective public servants get to write these exams en masse. So I'm just wondering if I can get more information on that. Chair, the other point is about the draft framework on the professionalization of the public service. I'd just like to confirm that even though members of parliament are not listed on that schedule of people who will be consulted, I just want to get clarity that we will in fact have an opportunity to make those inputs, because I think this committee is well placed, given all the reports we receive, to actually make some practical suggestions. I've read through the document. I think there are some good things in there, but I also think it lacks in certain important respects. So I do hope we get the opportunity for the NSG to seriously consider some of our input. And then the final point, Chair, is a question regarding recent reports about the role of the government of China in providing training to South African public servants. I'd like to understand what amount is being spent by our state, by the government, on getting that training provided from public servants from China. And I'd also like to get the principal's views on the appropriateness of providing training from a state that is not a multi-party democracy like ours, and whether he views that as appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
I have questions for the National School of Government and the Center for Public Innovation. The National School of Government, I note that in the 2019-2020 financial years and into the 2020-21 financial year, your performance training was severely impacted due to the suspension of contact training or face-to-face training, and you lost revenue in excess of 10 million. But I just want to encourage you to invest a bit more in your online and virtual training capabilities, because there's talk of a third or a fourth wave that will possibly go through as a country. So it's very important that you put resources into that, as much as I think face-to-face and contact is important for those that don't have access to those resources. So maybe you might even look into having hybrid training venues, of course, where you would ensure that people that are receiving the training observe COVID protocols. So I would encourage you to continue developing those online and virtual learning capabilities. You mentioned that you had a huge cybersecurity scare, and you put in place a cybersecurity tool to protect the ICT environment. The reality again is that due to COVID, a lot more people are engaging in online activities, including online work. So you will be compelled to invest in your cybersecurity capabilities. And I would encourage you to work with other government departments that have mastered this. I don't know if government departments are aware of this, but Defense Intelligence has a solid cybersecurity capability, and they've helped banks who've been subject to cyber attacks or cyber terrorism beef up their cybersecurity. So I would encourage you to solicit help and support from other government departments that have done very well, because as we continue with online activities, cyber terrorism and cyber attacks are increasing. And then the Center for Public Innovation. I take it that you're supposed to be at the forefront of, introducing innovation in the public service. And I want to know what your role has been during the pandemic. What have you done that you can actually say that this was the outcome of what we did to ensure that the public service is able to meet the demands, the service delivery demands that have been brought on by the pandemic. In one of your slides, you talk about the compilation of a repository of innovations in response to COVID-19. Can you give us insights into this repository? How many innovations were developed in response to COVID-19 by the center? And what has been the impact of these innovations? Is it translating into tangibles and measurables and things that we can see in government departments? As regards partnerships and collaborations, you've mentioned that you have partnerships with certain institutions, but I didn't hear you talk about CSIR or the Department of Science and Technology and innovation centers at tertiary institutions. Are partnerships with those institutions happening? Because it's important to tap into the capabilities of other centers that are leading when it comes to innovation and the like. You mentioned that you had a limitation when it came to software. So those partnerships and collaborations become very important at that level. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Soma.
Thank you very much, Chair. Probably let me not be jealous. Ne? Let me also welcome my, I wouldn't say because an honorable, my little sister, Honorable Kondiwe, whom we work with in Section 25 ad hoc committee. You are most welcome, ma'am. Having said that, Chair, probably also the questions one would not necessarily have much, because in our previous engagement with entities, we did raise some of the issues, and also in the DM's opening remarks and then the foundation of the presentation, she has covered some of the issues that we would have raised in our engagement previously with the two NSG and the Center for Innovation. But it's safe to say with the Center for Innovation is to appreciate the ever positive energy that the acting DG has been demonstrating, and she's still doing that, notwithstanding that the organization repositioning is still underway, which then probably it does, from where I'm seated, through you, Honorable Kondiwe, is that some of the things they would not necessarily be able to do them because of those limitations and also limited budget, with further budget cuts, as it were. I'm not responding, but I'm appreciating good ethics that she has been demonstrating thus far. But having said that, Chair, probably with the example that she has used in terms of the innovation that it's used in KZN and Gauteng, is that probably to answer the question that Honorable Kondiwe has asked in terms of other relationship with other science partners, as it were, I would like to call them science innovators partners, as it were. Are you not supposed to discover the innovation, whether internally or externally, and then you bring forth to the public sector so that it can also improve the service delivery? Not only just to improve it, but to speed up the service delivery and save cost wherever is possible. The other one, Chair, that I would like to ask, or as a comment, which is a take home for Honorable DM and NSG, but also equally goes with the Public Service Commission, is it not time that we can be opportunistic as public service or as the country to move towards aggressively move towards e-government, so which also with the NSG then can improve the online or visual trainings intake. But I'm very much interested on the financial management, because I understand those people who work within the finance or the supply chain management, as it were, in various departments, they do have tools of trade that are also responsive in terms of also them attending training, because that's an area that the AG he has or she will be at pain also dealing with it in terms of addressing it as an area of emphasis for almost all the departments. That probably we must also partner with the Public Service Commission just to investigate and make a thorough research what makes a very like not a zero appetite or on our public servants at that level to register and take the opportunity of being retrained and be reminded in terms of financial management protocols and good ethics, as it were. Let me just check, Chair, I'll be quick. I had some notes here. Okay, the rest, Chair, I'll leave it because other honorable members, they made comments and also dealt with it. But the very most important one is that while the 2021 year under review is that we are also spending money on COVID. If we can borrow from the activities and the checkbox of the AG on the timeline auditing, as it were, so that when the audit time comes, we know that we have dealt with the issues that the AG may raise, but also appreciating that the previous years you did manage to have clean audit report. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Komani.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let us also welcome both the presentations and maybe ask a few questions. Let us start from the National School of Government. Chairperson, it's a worrying factor that there are so many still vacancies within the sectors. And one would speak about those in every presentation. So one would as well ask, why was the vacancies and salary adjustments not yet implemented? And then, Chair, secondly, how far is the process towards the finalization and the approval of the organizational structure of the school? And then, Chair, if one may move to the Cpsi, we applaud them for working towards building the internal capacity, which is what we are striving for as the country. But then, Chair, the question would then be, apart from that, what caused the failure to conduct public sector workshop? Because there were not many financial and material logistics involved in organizing these workshops. And then the other question, Chair, is to ask the Cpsi as to how safe are we from corruption? Was the bid from corruption in terms of them doing the bid and the bid evaluation and the adjudication process through the online committee meetings? Because they have indicated that there was cyber threats. So again, Chairperson, again, I would reiterate that 16 plus or minus 16% vacancy rate is far too many and far too much, and then we cannot afford that. What is it that they are doing to fast track the appointment into those positions, into those vacancies, so that we can assist? Like I said earlier, Chair, we have got so much unemployment rate, yet we are sitting with so many, with so much unemployment rate. And equally, Chair, one would then emphasize that we cannot only celebrate the savings in vacant posts, because we need to maintain the sustainability in terms of keeping the unemployment. Equally, Chairperson, we need to equally maintain the same sustainability to the employees by avoiding the contracts, because in some of their presentations, they have stated that there are contracts which are due to end soon. So that means we are still going to have unemployment rate going high. So maybe one needs to be clarified on that. Chair, and Chairperson, lastly, having said, having listened to the presentation of the Cpsi saying they have saved on their consultancy service fees, I think that is probably very good step in the right direction. But we should as well emphasize that we need to maximize the capacity within the institutions, so that, Chairperson, we move away from consultancy fees. It shows that we can even save more. Should we move away from consultancy fees? Should we move away from consultants? So by building the capacity, then people will be able to do the job that is being entrusted to the consultants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ntuli.
Chair.
Honorable Ntuli.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm joining the previous speakers in welcoming the presentations and also commending the DM on her opening remarks to say, indeed, we've had these disruptions of the pandemic, but all in all, the department is there, kicking and alive. Chair, it's clear that we do have the elephant in the house of vacancies for both NSG and Cpsi. But going back to NSG, understanding the disruption of the pandemic, considering any training or workshop like any other school, it is true that it's not everyone enjoys network, and even the online won't be just as a smooth sailing. We therefore commend the little that they've tried, and also the new developments that they have established. But I wanted to check one thing from NSG. The portfolio committee religiously spoke of compulsory courses from the departments. Now I wanted to check if they've undergone such, and also to check the response from the departments, and whether it has yielded yielded any fruit, because we are still haunted by the pandemic, and we don't know as to when this pandemic will lend us back to normals, meaning that we should be now in a position to adapt to the new normals. Adapting to the new normals, but having guaranteed work for the school, National School of Government. And again, that will help to lift up the level of understanding and the level of good work by the public service. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mzibe. Honorable Mzibe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I've got a question for Cpsi. The question is, you failed to conduct online workshops since there were no many financial implications. That is why the training was not done. So it shows that where there is money, where there is finance, where there is material, logistics and everything, corruption is too much, because you didn't want to conduct the training since there were no financial implications. So I would like you to give us your challenges, why you didn't do this training. Please give us challenges in details. And then the last one, are we going to see the countrywide replication of the software solution of the distribution of e-books
and interactive content, as well as enabling the digitization of handwritten lessons, assessments, homework, classwork, assignments, tests, and exams. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson.
Can both NSG and Cpsi give responses now to the question raised by honorable members?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you to the honorable members for the questions. On the first question, Chair, on the pre-entry, and we will send detailed information sheet on this course called the Nyukela. This is a pre-entry exam course with an examination administered to anybody within the Republic who wish to apply for a senior management job in government. Whether you work for an NGO, private sector, unemployed, you are eligible to apply. Also, people who work in government who may already be a director or a chief director or a DDG who wish to apply for a senior post, it is mandatory for them to do the course called the Nyukela. So you will not be appointed as DG in cabinet or as HOD in a provincial executive in EXCO unless you have done Nyukela as a pre-entry examination. In fact, after taking a few questions from journalists about Nyukela, I indicated to them that those who wish to understand and know that this course prepares people to become ethical and model civil servants, I challenge them to do the course themselves because it is online. It costs less than 300 rands to do it. And if you successfully get a senior management job, the benefits far exceed the 300 rands you pay. And this is for SMS, senior management. You're already to apply for a senior management post, it's understood that you'll already have been working. In the professionalization framework, Chair, the draft that we spoke about earlier on, there are proposals and they are only just proposals. They will have to go through a very long process before they can be realized. There are proposals to implement pre-entry exams at levels lower than SMS. So in countries like India and China and so on, it is compulsory for people who work in government to write the pre-entry exams. These exams include the modules or tests or assessments around the issues of ethics, integrity, your knowledge of government, your appreciation of the Constitution, and things like that. So if you have not read the Constitution, if you have not read Batupile principles, I can guarantee you that you will fail Nyukela. I mean, that's for sure. So we're saying the people, it's a filter for people who want to work as senior managers in the public service. So it only applies to national and provincial spheres. It has not been adopted by the local government sphere yet. We are now in the first full year of implementation. We will do an assessment and a review, and on the basis of the outcomes of it, we will then take this to negotiate with other relevant structures. Like SALGA may decide that they want to implement it in the SALGA, in the local government sphere. And if so, we will have to do some modifications and put relevant modules in it. Again, as I said, if you've not read the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, you will not succeed in Nyukela. And in fact, when you go for your interview, we're expected to bring your Nyukela portfolio. On the professional framework, Chair, as I indicated, we are consulting more than the stakeholders that are in the list that I showed earlier on in the presentation. We wish to come to the portfolio committee, having had the benefit of getting input and advice from professional bodies as well as other stakeholders. We will have engagement with organized labor. In fact, when the process is done, we will have a full workshop engagement with the National Planning Commission as well as the Public Service Commission itself, where they will be able to provide advice. So yes, indeed, we will come before the portfolio committee. Chair, as it will be indicated in the next presentation by DG Yoli, There are important processes underway now of making amendments to the Public Service Act, as well as PAMA. Some of the amendments that will be made in those two pieces of legislation will give effect to the proposals emerging from the professionalization framework. Those that require legislation will then be factored in that process. On the question of us and who we work with as the National School of Government, we are a knowledge institution, Chair and honorable members. We have partnerships with universities in France, in the US, in China, in Germany, in Canada, and we will be expanding this together with schools of public administration. So schools like us, we also have relationships with, as well as mainstream universities in the countries I've mentioned, as well as in the universities locally. The type of training that we are providing to public servants through these partnerships is not a party political, ideological training. It's about practice, it's about statecraft. And our view is that public servants, members of parliament, and all employees of organs of state must be exposed to as much practice on statecraft as they can from globally. And in terms of them applying those things, the South African context is different. They will have to apply those things. For example, on the course we're doing with the China-Africa Institute in China on agriculture, we expose public servants on how you can successfully support smallholder farmers at a district level, provide fertilizer and what have you, up to a point where they become sustainable as smallholder farmers. And those are the principles that you can learn in universities in China, in India, and so on. In other countries, they do have similar interventions, but in the US, the farming sector is highly mechanized. We don't have as much extension officers as we have in India, in China, as well as in Latin America. And this is the kind of things that we are doing. We are exposing public servants on best practice models on statecraft and not on the, and we actually don't get involved in the politics of party and those type of arrangements in any of the countries that we had relationship with universities in the US under the former president. We are continuing in Europe and everywhere else. And those are helping South African public servants to be exposed broadly. Yes, we did, remember, lose revenue of about 10 million per month, especially during COVID levels 5 and level 3. As fewer people were attending courses, we began to recover in October as more people were coming. That is why we even brought ministers and mayors here, because we wanted to show that we were now open for business. Our space is limited, but we can actually accommodate up to 35 people in a course in one of our biggest rooms here. As I indicated, we have invested our limited resources on building ICT capability. We didn't have Teams. We had to buy new software to do Zoom and Teams because we didn't want to use the free versions. Those are risky. The challenge, however, is we know it is not all public servants who can have access to Zoom and Teams. Even those who do have, they only have them at the office, which limits their ability to be training all the time. So for the virtual courses, most people are attending from the office because they've got a computer and the internet in their offices. But for what is called synchronous and asynchronous, that means it's online, either it is guided or unguided. People do need data because it means you can do that course in the comfort of your home as well during weekends. Hence, the zero rating thing is very important for us. And we're encouraged, Chair, that the minister and the DM are leading this conversation that tools of a laptop should be a common tool of trade, regardless of your level. Because in many departments, it's people at deputy director upwards who've got laptops. And it becomes very difficult then, even to bring the best of professors globally to train our public servants if they do not have a computer as a tool of trade, and more so the laptop, because some of these courses, like the course we're doing with universities in North America, you are required to be up at midnight. And if you don't have a laptop, then you will be excluded from participating in the course. Because some of these courses, Chair, you are attending the same quality of courses here in South Africa virtually, as well as a student who will be attending the same in North America, in the UK, in Beijing, or anywhere else. And so the tools of trade are important for us. Yes, we are collaborating with other organs of state. On cybersecurity, for example, we're collaborating with the University of Johannesburg. They will be seconding a cybersecurity expert to here to us, but also there's a training program where between ourselves and the presidency and the University of Johannesburg will be training public servants on cyber security. So the move to e-governance will be a very important thing for us as the NSG. But for us to charge premium, we have to invest in the quality of the content we provide. We have to bring the best professors. We don't pay the government of China to deliver the training programs that are being delivered here. We don't pay. We make money instead. So in the strategic partnerships we have, we charge a management fee. The money comes into the NSG. We're not paying the government of China for our relationship with them. Instead, they are bringing their expertise to us as South Africa. For most of the programs with European universities, we have generous support from the European Union. It's coming to an end this year, and we are putting an application for renewal of those programs. With your permission, Chair, I wish to request the CFO just to deal with the questions on the budget and the vacancy. On organizational structure, we are hoping that it will be approved by the end of this month, which is July. So when we come to report for the third quarter, it will be a done deal. So if maybe the CFO just briefly on the finances, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yoli, come in.
Sorry, it's Pindile.
Oh,
Thanks,
it's Pindile.
Chair.
Okay, yes. Come in, Pindi.
On the issue of the salaries, why we haven't implemented, the salary negotiations are dealt with at the higher level, so that has not been approved by DPSA. So we have budgeted for them, and we cannot implement until those approvals are in place. The vacancies, what has happened is some of the posts, we had the people working, like Director Legal left during the financial year, and immediately after, when they left, there was budget cuts on compensation of employees, which meant that now it reduced our budget on compensation, so we couldn't refill the post because of budget cuts. Those are the main issues there. Budget cuts that impact on the vacancies. Thank you.
Thank you both, NSG and Cpsi. Can I invite the DM now to introduce the presentation by DPSA?
I've done so, Chairperson.
You have done already, okay.
Chairperson, with your indulgence, the Cpsi has not responded to the questions yet.
Why?
Because NSG started responding first.
Okay, I gave you the opportunity to come in then respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I will try to be very quick, and my colleague Pierre will answer some of the questions. With regard to the online workshops, we had planned for face-to-face, and the content for face-to-face has some physical activities that attendees must do. So when we revised the terms of reference, we had to take into account that some of the physical activities cannot be done. Hence, the time it took for the terms of reference. They were already issued, and we had to withdraw and start the process afresh. So that's because that led to the delay, because we're planning to host the workshops in the second quarter. The purchase order was only issued in September, but it was late for us to organize those sessions. Hence, we pushed the delivery of the two workshops to the third quarter. And I think in terms of the budget, the money is there, but we spent less because we went online. So we didn't spend any money on the venue, on catering, and so forth. That's where we said that we spent less on the virtual workshops. In terms of replication, Honorable Mutete, we have a replication program, but again, we are limited by the budget. For instance, with the e-learning solution, it costs about 170K to link one school. And you'll agree with me that with Cpsi budget of 34 million for goods and services and compensation, we are not able to roll out to the whole country. So we are limited by the budget, but what we do as part of creating awareness around these solutions, we do share with provinces to say, you need to find money in your budget to link schools to make sure that we deliver lessons through innovative ways. So we are only limited by budget. If we had enough money, we would roll out the whole province, but unfortunately, we can only do so much with the limited budget that we have. In terms of vacancies, I think we had already responded to that to say, yes, it's high, but we are hopeful that before the end of the financial year, as the Deputy Minister said, we will be able to fill all those vacancies. It's becoming more urgent, as we indicated. Savings on consultancy, it's actually, because as the structure is now, we are not even fully fleshed in terms of program one. So if you look at the organizational structure of Cpsi, you won't see legal services, you won't see labor relations, you won't see internal audit, because DPSA is rendering those services on our behalf. But because of budgetary constraints as well, it looks like Cpsi will have to take over those services. But unfortunately, because compensation of employee budget is ring-fenced, kept by National Treasury, we cannot increase it. We are left with no option but to outsource some of these services because we cannot create more posts in program one. We want to approach Treasury to try one more time to see if they will be able to give us additional money. But as it is, if DPSA stops rendering those services, we have no choice but to outsource, because the current savings on compensation is just 1.4 million, for instance, in this financial year, and you can only create so many posts for 1.4 million. I will ask Pierre to respond to the issue around the compendium, what we did during the pandemic and our partnerships. Honorable Lesoma, we do find these innovations because we believe that sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you find a best practice or innovation in KZN, we do take it to other provinces to implement. So yes, we use our awards program as one of those ways of finding these innovations. Sometimes we find them in the media, sometimes we benchmark worldwide to try and bring those, but we are limited, as I said, by procurement processes. How do you then procure to make sure that we roll out these innovations? So we're trying our best, but with one project, a person responsible for the replication program, she can only do so much. I wish we had more posts in the replication program so that we have foot soldiers that push replication in all the provinces. Unfortunately, for now, we are limited in terms of internal capacity. With your permission, Chairperson, I would like Pierre to just answer those last two questions from members. I thank you. Pierre?
Thank you.
Thank you, AED. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity and members. Very quickly, in terms of the COVID repository, the focus is slightly different because it's a real-time project that we are compiling, but the focus is to build future resilience in the public sector, because I think members can understand when you are dealing with a crisis, given the decentralized nature of the public service, you can't impose yourself on, for example, a hospital CEO who is inundated with challenges. So what we are looking at is building a more resilient public service also in the future. The repository covers issues of infection control, treatment, solutions like chatbots and self-assessment, screening, poverty alleviation in the midst of a crisis and different ways of doing that, behavioral insights, how to strengthen positive behavior, contactless public service, including contactless education, online work and things like identity verification. These are currently being uploaded onto our website that's being revamped and will be available, but it's the focus on building future resilience. With regards to cybersecurity and bit processes, the very reason why we looked at it was to ensure that there is cybersecurity in our online work. If you work from home or if you work remotely, members will agree that issues of signatures, declaration of interest, scoring and checklists and document management become very critical in terms of both cybersecurity, but also in terms of having an auditable process, so that when the AG look at our processes at the end of this financial year, that everything will be auditable. So we looked at how to deal with electronic signatures and with processes so that we can manage and that we don't delay our procurement processes and also our accountability processes in this regard. And that was the purpose, and we are happy to say that we were able to relatively speedily implement this, and that all our processes are now done online. In terms of some of the initiatives that we undertook, apart from basic things like ensuring that there's online screening forms, we also supported online hackathons. We conducted a number of webinars that we used the opportunity for training and innovation. We're also engaging with the Northern Cape on developing a virtual to song centers. And all of these things are therefore taking beyond COVID, but using the impetus to take it further. In terms of the question on partnerships, because we're so small, we can't build a very strong partnership network and sustain that. So what we are doing is we are working project specific on a partnership. So when the solution requires involvement from a university or the CSIR or an NGO or a youth group, we ensure that those are strengthened during the specific project. And whilst maintaining general partnerships like with DSI, CITA, the Innovation Hub, and CSIR. So I can assure members that no innovation can happen in isolation, and therefore we need to have those very strong partnerships in place, not only on the supply side, but also partnerships in terms of our departments and how we implement innovation. We don't always talk about it, but we have a whole network of innovators across the country that work closely with us and to take innovations into institutions and into departments. And these are departments that are not normally the normal suspects, if I can put it in that way. It includes departments like correctional services that has got a very strong unit that work with us and that who are building innovation capacity within the department as well. So, Chair, I think with that, I think can I hand back to you, please?
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the meeting was supposed to end at 5. Can I please ask for your indulgence that we go to the last issues of this meeting and then we close after that. Can I invite now the DPSA?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Chairperson, and the honorable members, and the Deputy Minister as well, and colleagues from the various departments.
I just want to ask and check if the colleagues are going to show the presentation for me, or should I show it myself? Secretariat.
Yes, you can show yourself, please. Thank you.
I don't know if I have the rights to show chair, but maybe I can just read the presentation because it's not, I'm trying to share the screen. Okay. I think it's here. Chair, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see, Oli.
Thank you, Chairperson. Basically, we will just highlight some of the key information. We won't go into detail of the presentation, Chairperson. Just to say that we cover the first and the second quarter in terms of the colors. When it's green, it's achieved. When it's red, it's not achieved. In the first quarter, we achieved 27 of 30 targets, which is at 90%. In the second quarter, we achieved 24 of 28 targets, which is at 88%. Just in terms of the highlights for the first quarter, the targets, I will give explanations, Chair. I won't spend much time on the targets that we have achieved because I want to use that time, a little bit of time, to give a little bit of update on some of the issues that we're dealing with. So the members know the deliverables and the targets because they're in the APP. So I will just focus on those that we have not achieved. In quarter one, there is a target under program 2 that we have not achieved. And there is 2 targets under program 3 that we have not achieved. So I will just jump quickly and go through those. You'll see in program 1 that we have achieved all our targets for the quarter, and indeed we received a clean audit for the reporting period for the previous financial year as well. I'll jump program 1. Going into program 2, we achieved 1 of 2 targets in this unit. In this program, the target that was not achieved relates to the quarterly report on compliance by national and provincial departments. Basically, we were unable to achieve this target because it's mainly because of the disruptions caused by COVID, in the sense that we've had to shift most of the reporting deadlines for the department. So for us to get the information to consolidate into our quarterly reports, which ultimately will result in will be consolidated in a national, in an annual compliance report. So we want to indicate that even though the quarterly report has not been achieved, the annual compliance report will be achieved because colleagues are still expected to report, and we are receiving reports on a number of areas that have been extended the deadlines because of COVID. Program 3, I think this program achieved 5 of its 7 targets. I'm just going to jump the targets that have been achieved, and the 1 target not achieved is related to the SMS post provisioning norms and standards. This target was not achieved, and we subsequently removed it from the APP when we were retabling in August, when we were given an opportunity to reconsider the APP. Part of the reasons we did not move on this target is because the colleague there's been a new structure in the department, and there's been some shifting around of colleagues that were done to align to the new structure. But there were some colleagues who were unhappy, and this colleague particularly did not provide the handover report to the new unit that's supposed to continue this work. The research had already been done. The matter is currently at disciplinary stage in terms of this particular matter, as part of the issues that are at disciplinary stage involving this particular colleague. The second aspect here as well relates to the quarterly report, because this unit also has quarterly compliance targets that required attention as well, but were affected by the changes that were made, the extension of reporting times. I think, Chair, for quarter 1, that's the 3 targets that have been achieved. I indicated earlier on that I won't spend much time on the achievements, but maybe I should just highlight that, for instance, for Program 5, which is the service delivery support, we actually had during this period a successful public service month program, which was supported by a number of departments in the province. Program 6, which is the last program, all the targets for Program 6 were achieved. The financial disclosures is one of those. We have taken our report as well to the forum of DGs to highlight some of those departments that have not complied in respect to that work. I think, Chair, I can move now to the second quarter report. In terms of the second quarter, I indicated earlier on that there were 4 targets out of 28 targets that were not achieved. Again, I'll just go into detail into these targets. 2 of these targets reside in Program 3, Public Service Employment and Conditions of Service. 1 resides in Government Chief Information Officer, and another in Service Delivery Support. Program 1 again achieved all its targets. In the current period, we had a case of fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 2,500 rand. I think it was picked up during September 2020, and the CFO has worked with the relevant people to deal with the matter of the wasteful expenditure. There has been no case of irregular expenditure that has been picked up. Program 2, I want to go to where there's under, yes, Program 3, I reported that there's 2 targets that were not achieved, and I will highlight these targets. The 1 target had to do with the procurement of an evaluation system. We were meant to develop terms of reference for the job evaluation system. Members would know that the department has a job evaluation system that it has been using, but this evaluation system, the contract expired, and the people who were servicing us on this work anyway moved out of the company moved out of the country, and we decided to go on a new process of developing a job evaluation system. There is some work that was done again in the job evaluation in this space. It's part of the areas of work that I indicated earlier on that they were not handed over because of challenges within the branch, and there's disciplinaries that are going on in relation to that particular matter. So the terms of reference have since been developed in quarter 3, but this project has been affected by the budget cuts, which I'll talk to later. In terms of the second one is the quarterly compliance reports as well that were due for this unit, which were affected by the changes that were made to accommodate departments and the challenges of COVID, because most departments were not working on their full capacity. So they asked for some of these deadlines to be moved a little bit forward. In terms of Program 5, which is the CIO, or the Government Chief Information Officer, there's 1 target that has not been achieved in this unit. And this target related to the consultations in respect of the report on implementation of the national e-government strategies. Basically here, we've just had delays in terms of securing engagements with the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies as a strategic partner and a principal stakeholder for the rollout, but our efforts are continuing even currently to ensure that we complete on this matter before we go into the next financial year. Program 5, 1 target was not achieved in this particular program. I'm going to, the program relates to the quarterly report compliance specifically, and I did indicate earlier on that you will still be able to do the annual compliance report, which is the annual target that we are chasing in respect to this matter. Program 6, they achieved all their targets in the quarter. Then, Chair, I just wanted to give a high-level update on some of the work that I'm sure the committee would have an interest on before I hand over to the CFO, who will also speak on the financials. One of the issues I just wanted to give you an update on is that the DPSA continues to support government departments in terms of COVID response and management of COVID in the workplace. And so there is remote work currently that is happening. We've issued a circular after we were taken back to adjusted level 3, a circular to all departments, which allows them to have 50% of capacity that is working, and they can implement the rotation and shift system in place. This morning we had our own EXCO as the department, where I was also getting reports on how the rotation is working in the department. And we're still on track in terms of developing the remote work policy framework. We have a draft in place, which we are consulting with provinces and national departments so that it can be converted into a directive to be signed off by minister before the end of this financial year. In terms of the optimization of the public service, this is a big project that we're involved in, or that we have started during the course of the financial year. And we're still doing lots of work behind the scenes. We have not spoken much about this project because there's still lots of work behind the scenes that is being done. But the focus, amongst others, is on wage bill management, as well as looking at issues of productivity in the public sector, and as well as program 1 review. I think at the right time, at the correct time, we will come to the committee to give proper detailed briefings on this project. The other key work that we've been doing relates to our preparations for the upcoming negotiations. The cycle of negotiations should have started already, but I think because of resolution 1 issues, where there's been delays a bit in terms of starting. We are ready as government, but our colleagues from Labour had indicated that I think they'll be ready to start engaging early in February. And so we are in February now. We should, I think, very soon they will be starting. In terms of conditions of service of employees in the public service, Minister of Finance has approved the increase in medical aid, the component that is paid for by government. In terms of the increases in medical aid, we received a letter yesterday, and we are happy at least to be able to share some good news to colleagues, because there was lots of people were concerned about this, because already the medical aid on its own side, GEMS has already done the increases, so government needed to match those increases with their contribution, the government contribution. In terms of resolution 1 of 2018, the last leg of this agreement, the one that saw us being at the Labour Appeal Court, and the decision was taken by the Labour Appeal Court, judgment in favor of the employer. We have since received papers. The unions are taking the matter on appeal at the Constitutional Court, and we are doing lots of preparatory work in respect to that particular issue at this stage. PAMA regulations, we have received, the members would recall that there's been delays because of concurrence. We have received concurrence from the Minister of Finance and Minister for COGTA. What we are currently awaiting for is concurrence from SALGA. They've confirmed that they will issue the concurrence during February, which means in terms of our plans that by 1st of April, we should be having these new regulations effected. These are new regulations that deal with issues like the e-disclosures and some of the other sections in the PEM Act that need to be implemented. In terms of the Public Service Act and PEM Act amendments, the broad areas of amendment were presented in Cabinet and they've been approved by Cabinet. We are now engaged in the process of developing the draft amendment bill and the necessary engagements and consultations that must take place in relation to this. One of the areas in respect to the Public Service Act is around the issue of head of public administration in the presidency, giving the DG in the presidency responsibility over career incidents of DGs, amongst other things. These are issues that are coming out of the NDP document, which we are implementing through the amendment of this legislation. Members would know that we have engaged in a process of rolling out a new structure in the department. Some new posts were created, which led to us having a vacancy of around 120 vacancies. We are currently at around 15% in terms of vacancies, and we have a plan to fill our vacancies. But again, these vacancies now have been affected by the budget cuts, about 60 of the positions that we can fill. So we've been busy, even in the morning today, we've been busy with the process of reprioritizing from 120 vacancies to be able to agree on the 60 that is we agree as priority as EXCO that needs to be filled. It's not an easy process because everybody believes their work is important and it needs to be supported. The implications of the cuts by Treasury is that we certainly, it's affecting our personnel budget. So we've had to, we are reduced in terms of numbers, and that will also have an impact in terms of our program and program rollout. So again, the process for the APP, the process of developing the annual performance plan for 2021-22 is also unfolding, and we are taking these issues into account so that we are very focused in terms of our priorities for the sixth administration and some of the key operational responsibilities that we need to focus on. There are some operational things that we may have to lose or we may have to drop or suspend, taking into account the limited resources, but there will be engagements with our executive authority on those issues. As well, the single public administration issue has received some attention. We have gone to cabinet with a broad proposal around the areas for amendment in PAMA, which relates to the implementation of the single public administration. And one of those immediate areas members that we are looking at is the rolling out the issue of e-disclosures, financial disclosures across in national government and provincial government. We are already doing it, but working with a local government, we already have a system that's available at Cpsi. We just need to build in more capacity in the system, and also looking at DPE in terms of the state-owned enterprises. There are conversations that are taking place with these colleagues, in respect to this, to these processes. But of course, once we have the regulations in place from the 1st of April, they will make it quite quicker and easier for us to move in respect to this. Lastly, Chair, the DPSA continues to play a leading role in some of the work in government. We are chairing the cluster that deals with state capacity. So there's lots of work that we are doing there, and in respect to working with DPME and Treasury and DCOG on a number of issues around being the center of government in terms of administration and planning in the public service. I think, Chair, I can stop there, taking into account that we have time limitations, but I think there's a lot that can be shared, and we will then have to take questions from members in respect to how we deal with some of these issues. I would like to, with the permission of the Chair, to hand over to the CFO, who will take you through the financial report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, come in, CFO.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Members, and Honorable DM, good evening. With your permission, Chair, I would request the DG to move to slide number 38, which is the second quarter report, due to the fact that the figures are actually cumulative. If the DG could move to slide number 38, please.
Which slide, CFO? Sorry, I missed you there.
The next one.
Okay.
Thank you. Chair, in terms of the budgets, DPSA adjusted budget in the second quarter was 468 million for the entire vote. The entire vote, we including Center for Public Service Innovation, which we make transfers to. This is an adjusted budget because at the beginning of the first hard lockdown, and there was an amount of 96 million that was taken by Treasury in order to sponsor the COVID-19 relief fund of 500 billion, which was announced by the Honorable President. So that was the budget 468, and out of that, in the second quarter, which was the end of September, we had spent 206 million, and the amount unspent was 261 million, which is equivalent to 44% of the budget. As indicated previously by the other presenters, the norm is actually supposed to be 50% in the first 6 months. So there's been a bit of underspending. We reflecting in the slide, Chair, Honorable Chair, the spending of the budget per program started with program 1, 44%, program 2, 40%, program 3, 2.7%, 45% for the fourth program, and service delivery support, which is the fifth program, 46%, and governance of public service administration, 42%. In terms of the Center for Public Innovation, their budget of 34 million, we had transferred 17 million, and we're reporting on the transfers. They have already reported on the spending in the previous presentation, which is actually 49% in terms of their drawing. The next slide, DG, and the next slide basically deals with the same information in terms of economic classification, and that's where it shows a clear picture of where the money was spent. Composition of employees, budget of 291 million. We have spent 46% of that. We're short of 4% to make it 50% for the first 6 months. And the main reason is basically the vacant funded posts that were not actually filled in the first 6 months. As the DG has indicated earlier on, we're implementing a new structure, and obviously we are in the process of filling most of the vacant posts. The third quarter and now in the fourth quarter, the filling of most of the vacant posts has actually improved, and that would be rolled over in the next financial as well. If we look at in terms of the slides that we've indicated, if you look at the first quarter and the second quarter, honorable members will realize that our budget has actually reduced further by 11 million for compensation of employees. And for goods and services, between the first quarter and the second quarter, it was further reduced by 2 million. This is because after 96 million that was cut, Treasury came back with further cuts. And there are also further cuts that have been made over the MTF period. The goods and services, basically out of a budget of 134 million, we have spent 51 million in the second quarter, which is equivalent to 38%. Most of the reasons around the underspending has been because of the first quarter, which was the hard lockdown. There was not much activities in terms of finances. Most of our traveling was not traveling budget was not utilized because of the lockdown. Issues of venues and facilities, we did not have those because we conducted our business basically using the digital platform. However, there was an increase in terms of communication expenditure because of the data and network and connectivity expenditure related to that, because most of the officials were working from home. The main expenditure under the second quarter on goods and services was basically the office accommodation, which is basically a committed amount, and water and lights that were paid, as well as SITA contracts. Those were the main expenditure during the first and the second quarter. But most of the expenditure to traveling and travel and subsistence went down because of the lockdown. We started picking up late in the second quarter and in the third quarter. The transfers and subsidies, basically it's mainly the transfers to Cpsi. We have transferred their budgets, as well as some of the amounts related to composition of employees. payment for capital assets, we have actually reprioritized some money to actually procure laptops for officials so that they can be able to work at home. The expenditure has went up in the third and the fourth quarter because we have purchased most of the laptops. So in the second quarter here when we are reporting, it was still 12%, but it has went up in the third and the fourth quarter. So that is basically the budget in terms of the budget as well as the spending for the second quarter. The last slide, Chairperson or Honorable Chairperson, that I want to deal with is relating to some of the compliance issues. DG, the next slide, please.
I think this is the last slide, CFO, not moving beyond this.
Oh, and there was a slide that relates to, well, I'll talk to that slide, Chair, my apology. There's a slide that deals with the issues of 30 days payments. In terms of the first and the second quarter, we have made all our payments have made within 30 days period. In fact, our average payment days is between 11 and 12 days average. So we have made all our payments within 30 days. We have been consistent with that for the past 5 years, Honorable Chair. In terms of unauthorized expenditure, we have not incurred any unauthorized expenditure between the first and second quarter and up to date. In terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we had identified one case of fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the second quarter that DG has spoken about, which was about 2,500. We have since investigated the matter, and the results of the investigation is that the official involved was basically not responsible for that 2.5 fruitless expenditure, and the amount will actually be classified as claims against the state due to the merit of the case. And we have since got a legal opinion on that matter. The legal unit in our department also concurred with the report to say the amount is not fruitless expenditure and does not meet the definition, and it has to go as a normal expenditure under the claims against the state. This was the 2,500 rents, that was 2,500 that was charged by Cpsi, where there was a arbitration hearing. So one of our internal labor relation officer went there and requested for a postponement, which was the mandate that she was given by the department to do so, because there were some of the processes that did not take place that were supposed to take place before that arbitration hearing. And as such, the PSCB chair decided that this amount, it was the PSCB has actually incurred some costs, and they've charged the department 2.5, and they actually indicated that that must be recovered from the official. But when we investigate the matter, it was indicated that it was resolved that the officials were acting on behalf of the department, and as such, which cannot be held liable. That's why the amount would then be reclassified as claims against the state. And that is the update in terms of 2.5, 2,500 irregularities that we have identified. We are just waiting for some necessary approval, and the amount will be actually moved and be reclassified in the accounting books. Other than that, we don't have any fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Irregular expenditure, we don't have any cases of irregular expenditure which we identified in the first and the second quarter. Chairperson, Honorable Chair, this is my report, and I thank you.
Thank you, CFO. Honorable members, the report is now open for discussion. Can the members indicate by show of hands? Honorable Ntuli.
Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. We welcome the presentation by DPSA. But Chairperson, first and foremost, I don't think it was wise for, I'm not condoning for the department to hide things, but I don't think it was wise to bring the really unfinished business in terms of the fruitless expenditure, because here it appears as the fruitless expenditure that has been incurred. But when they give the details on it, you begin to understand that this should have been not brought here because it's still pending. Chair, in terms of compliance, I think it's high time, with the understanding of the disruption of the pandemic, it's high time that really the department should be proactive, because if departments in terms of reporting scheme couldn't give reports in time, what then says in this in the next quarter all the departments will be able to comply? So we are pleading for the department to be proactive to such things so that they don't really okay. In terms of vacancies, it's a huge number. We understand the problem that the department is facing in terms of budget cuts. And also, to me, it's not about everyone thinking that his task is his or her task is important, but it's about the task being there. And once the task is there, it needs to be executed. I don't know, because this number is still very high. We understand your attempt on sifting and trying to prioritize and get that quickly, but the 50% that is also still outstanding is still is meaningful. Maybe in this regard, it needs the committee to plead with the minister to sort of sit down with the with Treasury and explain, because the DG put it clearly that it's due to the cuts, and you can't really employ people and at the end of the day they don't get the salary. Thank you, Chair. That is my take for now.
Honorable Komani.
Thank you very much, Chair, once more. And let us also welcome the presentation by the DPSA. Chair, it is very worrisome to hear the department indicating that we need not to worry when there are reports that are not yet submitted, and they would then be submitted in the annual report, because the annual report should be informed by the quarterly report. So that statement is neither here nor there. We cannot just be made to just sleep there to say no, don't worry, it will be sorted later. People must learn to do their work as and when the work is expected to be done. If we need to submit quarterly report, it does not matter what the challenges or what the predicament may be. such should be submitted, because the first quarter should inform the following quarter, so that, and so on and so on. So we cannot just be listening to the department telling us that you don't need to worry about the report not submitted now, it will be covered in the next report, because we need to engage on that quarterly report. So we would not have engaged on it, and then we would then engage it on an annual report. So that is a very serious call for concern, and I don't know how I should put it, because I'm a bit disturbed about it. Having said that, Chair, my question to the DPSA would as well be that when we are engaging with the National School of Government, they indicated that the salary adjustment has not been implemented because the mandate was not with them, but it was with the DPSA. So maybe the DPSA should now then clarify as to why were those delays, and why when will those salary adjustments be implemented. And Chair, speaking to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, I think we are a committee where we need to be presented with the report. So if the report is I think if the report is wrongly placed, it shouldn't have been sent to us, because I think when the report was sent by the department to us, they have then known of the outcomes of their investigation and their recommendations from the legal department. So to me, it's I don't know if there is something that is being hidden, or but basically I would want to say the committee should be respected, so that it be presented with the information that needs to be presented, so that when we engage on those matters, they should not be retracted to say no, these are like wrongly based. Thank you, Chair. And equally, Chairperson, the issue of vacancies, it's a worrying factor. One would speak about it and speak about it and speak about it, and would not end, because yes, there are budget cuts that we all know of, and the department is now saying that of the 120, 60 are the ones that are to be filled. So one would then ask, after cutting 50% of the post, when will such be effected, so that we try to absorb this high rate of unemployment? We cannot always say that we're still working on a plan when we have identified, because I understand that there are budget cuts, but the budget cuts should have spoken to the cutting of vacancies as well. So the department by now should present to us what plan, as and when will those posts be filled. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kondwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to structure my questions around the 2 quarters. So the first question relates to Program 1 administration. Let me commend the department for not incurring any irregular or fruitless expenditure for this quarter, and for also saying that they monitor irregular or fruitless expenditure. I want to know, how are they getting it right? How are they monitoring and this irregular fruitless expenditure? Are there systems in place to make sure that it's curbed? And I want clarity on the consequences where this is incurred. In Q2, you mentioned that there was a nominal amount, and it probably doesn't qualify as fruitless and irregular expenditure. But I want to know what are the consequences, because unfortunately this isn't the case across all government departments. We still have government departments that are struggling with irregular fruitless expenditure. So I want to know, how are you getting it right, and what are the consequences for officials or units that incur fruitless or irregular expenditure? I've covered by my previous by comments from my previous colleagues around quarterly reports on compliance with DPSA policies. That's very concerning. And then under Program 6, you spoke about guidelines on conducting lifestyle audits. You said these were drafted in April 2020. I want to know, when are these guidelines likely to be finalized and rolled out at the various departments? And who will be monitoring the rollout of these guidelines at the various departments? I note also that you indicate that when you drafted these guidelines, you consulted the NPA, SARS, and SEPs. I wanted to know, why didn't you consult the SSA or the Financial Intelligence Center? Because they can bring in a lot of value when it comes to what to flag when you are, looking into auditing the lifestyles of government officials. Now I'm moving on to Q2 under Program 3, Public Employment and Conditions of Service. You indicated in Q1 that you identified 8 departments that are not complying with the requirement of finalizing their disciplinary cases within 90 days. And then under Q2, you indicate that support was provided to 21 departments on the implementation of the performance management and development system. Does this figure of 21 departments include those 8 that you identified in Q1 of not complying with the requirement to finalize their DC cases within the 90-day period? Program 4, Government Chief Information Officer. This target was not achieved, and the reason you give there is that it was due to delays in securing engagements with DCDT. Please elaborate on this. Was this matter not escalated perhaps to your principals, in both departments, to say we are unable to meet this target because we are unable to secure engagements with DCDT? Because for so long as you aren't able to, to engage with them, you will not meet this target. And then Program 5, Service Delivery Support. You make mention of Batupili Frontline Monitoring Framework. Tell me more, because I'm really worried that of these principles isn't fully entrenched in the public. And there's a perception out there that public servants have little or no regard for these principles, and public service is not citizen-centered in its approach, especially public servants at the front line of the delivery of services. So I want to know about this framework and what purpose it serves. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Schreiber.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just first of all, on a related point regarding those disciplinary cases, it's something that we've dealt with a lot in this committee, and occasionally we get these indications of departments that are failing to live up to the deadline. Can I perhaps request that we get this list in writing and consider calling these departments to our committee to account on why they are missing these deadlines? I know it's something we've discussed before, but I really think it needs to happen, and there's no better time than the present for this, Chair. The other question is just on the timelines for the amendments to the Public Service Act and the Public Administration Management Act. Can we just get an indication? I know the DG mentioned discussions at Cabinet. Where exactly are we in the process? At what point can this committee look forward to having its voice heard in this process, just so that we have an indication of the timeline? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Malazi.
Thanks, Chair. I don't want to repeat what has been said before, because what I wanted to raise, my colleagues have done so. So I will let the next person speak, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Malazi. Honorable Musipe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I would like to forward this to DPSA. I would like to request the department go back to the drawing board and come back with a proper, precise, and confirmed report. This is another year. We must have a way forward, not working backwards always. We are representing citizens, and we must be honest with them. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. Any responses, DPSA?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to request my colleagues who are here, I think DDG Linda and CFO, to take some of the questions, as I will allocate them as I go through the questions, if the Chairperson allows. I think that the first question related from Honorable Nduli on issues around fruitless expenditure the 2,500. I think the CFO can further explain this matter, but the view that the information is incorrect, we want to indicate that the information is correct. But the issue is still in the report in the manner that it is, because we are reporting on Q1 and we are reporting on Q1 and Q2. So it is the update that the chairperson was giving, which is work that has subsequently happened. I mean, the CFO was giving, which is work that has subsequently happened in the quarters, after these quarters that we are reporting on, but it is the correct information. The issue around the compliance report, I did not mean to underplay the issue. All I was just assuring members about is that the work will still be done. The department is not in a position to do the compliance reports when the departments that were monitoring compliance are unable to submit their reports because of the objective reasons that they are sharing with us around the impact of COVID to their work, and the fact that we've had to shift a lot of reporting timeframes to later in the year. For instance, one of those timeframes includes issues such as the assessment of DGs, which we had to move it to the end of March in 2021 because of the processes that are the complete cycle of that particular process, as an example. So we are monitoring and we are following that. And departments, and I indicated earlier on that departments have started to submit their reports, and we are following that up because by the end of the financial year, we must still do the work that needed to be done. The honorable, the issue around the vacancies, I think we take the feedback from the committee. There is a plan in place, honorable members, but the plan, and we've filled a number of vacancies in the department as well. So we can come back in terms of giving you specific statistics of some of the vacancies that we have filled. Throughout the year, we've been in a process of filling vacancies. But what has happened, we are also not happy about the high number of vacancies, but the process of rolling out the new structure and consultations with labor and all those things have also taken a lot of time in terms of our processes. And this is not to say this as a defense, but to just explain that it's not a matter of just waking up and advertising. We had to go through a lot of processes with labor. We have a plan that is approved, but that plan must be reviewed and reprioritized according to the available resources now. And in terms of timeframes, we are on that. We are working on that. Even this morning, we met on that. We are planning to consult with labor again early next week. And after that consultation with labor, we're going to do a submission for approval by the minister, because those positions we can't finance. It means they must be abolished from the structure. Honorable Komane has, I think I've addressed the issue around the annual and compliance reports, so I will pass it. I will not repeat my response again. The issue around salary adjustments, this is an issue that affected all public servants. It relates to the update I was doing on Resolution 1 of 2018. Treasury basically indicated there was no money to finance Resolution 1, the last year of Resolution 1. Apologies, members. Bansile, please, I'm in a meeting. Can you keep it down? Disturbing me. The issues around Resolution 1, it's the payment of the last leg of the 3-year agreement, the last leg, which was 1920 financial year. The matter has seen us go to court with labor, and the judgment was done in favor of the employer, which is government, but the unions have now taken the matter to the labor, to the Constitutional Court, or we received papers in respect to that particular issue. So that's the reason. The reason why the salary adjustments are not done is because there is no budget to finance the salary adjustment. Even those departments that said they've provided for their budgets from within their budgets, the point is the envelope for compensation that was given by Treasury only covered the 2 years. The third year of the increases was not covered, and we cannot pay increases even if you budgeted in the department if there is no approval for such from Treasury. The issue around the report being wrongly placed, I think that I've explained that issue. I won't go into detail to it. Again, the issue of the vacancies we are noting and the concern around those, and we want to assure members that we are very committed in filling these vacancies, and we've been filling a lot of vacancies in the department. Honorable Kondwe, you are asking a question around how we're monitoring. I think your questions, I'll leave them to the CFO. The one around how we're monitoring the irregular expenditures and how we're avoiding it and the consequences for where irregular or any form of these expenditures have occurred. You also asked the question about the guidelines. This is in respect to the lifestyle audits. When we will finalize. In terms of our plan, honorable members, is that we use information that we have. The guidelines are finalized, and we've trained the ethics officers of the various departments. We've trained the ethics officers so that they can be ready to do the first assessment, because you can't take everything to law enforcement. It's those cases that are flagged in the system from the disclosures as being cases that require further attention that we will take to law enforcement in terms of a detailed investigation and an intrusive lifestyle audit that must be done on those. So we've trained our ethics officers, we have finalized the guidelines, we are going to publish them, and we've been testing them, the guidelines, through the training and getting more feedback. We plan to publish them before the end of the financial year. And the lifestyle audits, those lifestyle audits that would be implemented through these guidelines will be effected in the next financial year, immediately at the beginning of the financial year. We will use as a source of information the data that we receive from the e-disclosures, from the financial disclosures already that public servants are doing in respect to that. Consultations were done, maybe those that are highlighted in the report are those that were engaged at that particular time. But I can assure you, we work very closely with SSA, we work very closely with FIC. We've also made consultations with them, including the SIU, around how best we could work with them in rolling out this, because they have investigative capacity that we don't have as TPSA. In terms of the disciplinary matters, I think the list that is being asked for, we can provide an update. There's lots of work that we've been doing. Minister has also been greatly involved in terms of escalating matters to those executive authorities that their departments are failing to comply, or those that we can see that they are sitting on disciplinary issues above the required period, the period that is on the guide currently. So yes, the 8 departments would include the other departments in the Pt.2, because the support that we give would take those departments and give the ongoing support and give the monitoring and prioritize them for the engagements with the minister if they fail, through the executive authorities. If they fail, we have a list of provinces that have been met by the minister, the premiers, as well as the ministers for the departments nationally. We can provide that detailed report if it's required by the committee. The issue of the OGCIO, the matter was dealt between by officials and have since been escalated to the DG. So I am in communication with DCDT at a DG level to ensure that we provide the necessary time, or we get the necessary officials to be available for us to do this particular responsibility, Chairperson. The Batupile frontline, I would like to request DDG Linda to take this question and to respond to it. The disciplinary cases, I think I've responded on the matter, Honorable Schreiber, around disciplinary cases. And yes, we can get the report or the information. We do this report on a quarterly basis, so the information is available. And we now have also generated a report on the interventions that have been done by the minister. And we are monitoring, and we will monitor if there's improvements. We are waiting for Q3 and Q4 reports of the departments, because they will show us if there's any movement or improvements, considering the issues that we have been dealing with. In terms of the timelines for amendments, according to our plan, we should have a draft amendment bill in June of June 2021. And then it is on that basis that extensive consultations will be engaged. But there are consultations with some of the critical partners already that we have been engaging in. These critical partners include SALGA, as well as COCTA, amongst others at this stage. The issue that Honorable Motsepe is raising about a proper and precise report, I do want to confirm that this report is proper and is precise. But honorable members, you would recall that we are reporting historically on things that happened in the past. So we can't change the report because we are only reporting now, but we can supplement the information and give you an update of what has since happened on these particular matters. CFO and DD Chilinda, over to you.
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Just quickly on the three issues that I need to deal with. I think the issue of the Honorable Komani around the food place and expenditure. DGS actually highlighted that. I don't think that as a department on that matter we are hiding things. The fact of the matter is that when we closed our books at the end of September, this amount of 2,500 was recorded in the books as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And on a quarterly basis, we submit financial statements to Treasury, and we submitted those financial statements with this amount being recorded as such. One of the duties of the CFO is that every month after each and every expenditure has been incurred, we go into an exercise of checking of comparing the checklist against the payments that we have made, whether they meet the definition of normal expenditure. And if somehow in terms of our checklist, a certain expenditure does not meet that, we will record it as such with the reasons why we're doing that. But then once the fruitless expenditure has been recorded, or whether it's irregular expenditure, that is subjected to investigation. And the investigation may confirm that no, it's not irregular expenditure in terms of this regulation and this, or well, there was no way that this matter could be dealt with in a different way, and we'll get an opinion. So all these expenditures are actually subjected to investigation. That's why in our slide we say investigation to be made. Maybe what we should have done is to update that slide before this meeting. But unfortunately, I got the final opinion from legal services this morning, which I've actually passed into the DG's office. She may not have seen it now, but that is the issue that I was indicating, that subsequent to that, we do investigation. And once we do investigation, one of them, in terms of PFMA, when we have irregular expenditure or fruitless expenditure, you can do either two things. Fruitless expenditure, you can recover from the official, which is what we wanted to do. But that then we would have to investigate, because the official will come and say, no, I'm not responsible. These are the circumstances. And that is the basis of investigation. Or else you can write off the fruitless and wasteful expenditure pending as a result of any investigation that will have been made. Now, in this case, I was just indicating that the investigation was done after that, subsequent to the end of September, and this is the opinion. So there's nothing that we are hiding, because if we don't report that at the end of September we had this irregular expenditure, and somebody goes to Treasury and get our financial statements for end of that, and there's an amount recorded, then would then be actually accused of misleading the Parliament, and that's what we don't want to do. So that's the issue. We will actually report in terms of what the accounting books are saying pending the investigation. So that's how we dealt with the issue of this fruitless expenditure. Honorable Gonde, on the issue of how the department monitors the irregular expenditure, what we have done, and we have been consistent, I think in the past financial year, we didn't even have a single irregular expenditure until the end of the financial year, and that was confirmed by the Auditor General's report as well, that we did not have any. What we do is that on a monthly basis, we have a team in finance that will look at each and every expenditure that we have made for the entire month. So we look at each and every expenditure, and we have a checklist that expenditure must, a normal expenditure must actually meet this. If it's an expenditure, there must be an order that has been issued to procurement processes. Certain procurement processes should have been followed. There must be, and that's how we monitor both irregular expenditure as well as 30 days payment. And that checklist, we tick against all the payments that we check on a monthly basis. And once all those payments have met those criteria, then we conclude that the expenditure, it's a normal expenditure and there's no irregular expenditure. In case of there's a regular expenditure, we expected as well by irregular expenditure guideline from Treasury to keep a list of all irregular expenditure. So, and as and when we make payments on a daily basis, that team will also look at the checklist to say this expenditure is a normal expenditure and it's not going to be an irregular expenditure at the end of the month. So we don't wait for the end of the month, but at the end of the month, we do an overall check as well, just to confirm that we have done our part. But each and every day when we make a payment, we will know when we make a payment that this payment is going to result in regular expenditure. And that's where we will actually flag it. But besides that, besides the only monitoring, to prevent irregular expenditure, you need to have proper internal policies. And that's what we have. And we need to update those policies on a regular basis. They need to be on the website, and that's what we do. And again, one of the issues, most important issue of preventing irregular expenditure is the tone at the top. So in management meetings, senior management meetings and staff meetings, you need to emphasize as the accounting officer that people must always adhere to prescripts of procurement and all the prescripts in terms of appointments, so that we don't incur irregular expenditure. That's the first thing that you do. But in case where you incur irregular expenditure and somebody is responsible for that, the only way to deal with that is to investigate and take action. And the consequence management is important. The only way to stop irregular expenditure is to set an example. So some of the issues in other departments that one has actually analyzed is the fact that when there's irregular expenditure or fruitless expenditure, the investigation will take place, but there's no consequences. At the end of the day, you'll be told that the person has left the department, has resigned, and that irregular expenditure is sitting in the books for many years. So it has not been dealt with, and it cannot be condoned. So those are the areas that you need to look at: proper policies and tone at the top. But again, on a daily basis, you monitor all your expenditure daily. So on a weekly basis, I would know that we have any irregular expenditure or we don't have. If you ask me in 2 weeks' time, or first 2 weeks of the month, I would know whether there's irregular expenditure or not. And on a monthly basis, that's what we do. So that's how we get it right, and we have all checks and balances to ensure that we don't miss any payment. So I think I've dealt with both issues in relation to how we monitor as well as the consequences of a person who incurred irregular expenditure. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, we have gone way beyond the time we are supposed to finish this meeting. Based on that, I think we must defer the members' condolences message to next week's meeting. I don't want to keep you longer than I have already. Can Mascole now deal with the announcements?
Okay, thank you, Chair. This was just to announce to members that in our program, initially we did not have a meeting on the 24th of February because there were some discrepancies with the parliamentary program, which we then received the final first term program from Parliament beginning of last week. We had then slotted a meeting on the 24th of February, honorable members. So we wish to advise members just that there will be a meeting on the 24th. A final program will be sent to members. We will be dealing with a government employee medical scheme on the allegation of racial profiling and transformation and findings of the advocate Ngcukaitobi report. Will then be briefed by Cpsi regarding government employee housing scheme, honorable members, on challenging that are encountered by public servant in accessing the benefit and the schemes, honorable members. So basically, it is just to alert members that on the 24th, 9:30, there'll be a meeting. I will send the program that has got amendments, honorable members. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Maskole. Honorable members, I have detained you for longer. We have now come to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for staying on until now. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Chair.
Have a good night.
Long live the
Thank you. Siyabonga.
Long live, Chair.
Long live.
Julius, yes.